This is ESPN Cricinfo.
ESPN Cricinfo, the videocast. And what a day it's been, what a week it's been for cricket.
Yeah. You've aged. Raunak, it looks visibly like you've aged.
I know, I've just been watching this test match unfold, and cricketers can learn a thing or two from my aging wisdom because they're not exercising good judgment on the field. Steve Smith has been removed as Rajasthan Royals captain just as we record this, as we speak.
Yeah.
So the world is only getting darker and darker for the, can I call him the Australian captain? The recently stood down for the test match Australian captain.
That's right.
It's no laughing matter, but we are trying to make sense of it all and trying to see where is it reasonable, the way cricket's reacting, and where are we slightly pushing it to a degree. So first up, what the IPL franchise has done.
Yeah.
Right, wrong, or overreaction, apples and oranges? What are your thoughts?
No, I think this was inevitable. Once this situation exploded in the way that it had, there was no question that Steve Smith was not going to remain Rajasthan Royals captain. I think that's absolutely
So
the right decision.
you can never put anything for granted, take anything for granted in the IPL.
You may not, yeah, because you know there'll be some twisted logic offered about how this might actually work for the franchise, etc. But I don't think.
I like how you've offered it.
Yeah, I don't think any of that is true. In fact, Raunak, I won't be surprised if he doesn't play the season at all. Because
that's a bigger one.
Yeah, because I think there's enormous amount of pressure on him. The CA sanctions are still to come, the sanctions for Cricket Australia. So I don't, I won't be very surprised if Steve Smith does not show up at all for the IPL. But I think it's absolutely the right decision to keep him away from the captaincy.
In which case, the question
He's been penalised for his role as captain. So you can't make him captain of a team immediately after.
Okay, but Sunrisers Hyderabad can then? Because it's not just Steve Smith. He has said the leadership group was as complicit in the whole ball-tampering thingy with Bancroft. So that means that an IPL winning captain in David Warner, and of course a favourite of his coach Tom Moody, who gets along so well at, can we expect that? Because I believe Sunrisers have said clear-cut, Warner's our captain as things stand.
Okay, so the distinction is that the ICC have sanctioned Steve Smith. They've actually banned him from the test match that's coming up in Johannesburg. But the only action that has been taken against David Warner is he was stood down temporarily from vice captaincy of this match by Cricket Australia. That is the distinction. He's not faced any sanction as far as the ICC is concerned.
So are you saying that Rajasthan have acted only because of the ICC sanction?
No, I am saying Rajasthan have acted because Steve Smith has faced the brunt of this situation, and I think that the logical thing for Hyderabad as well will be to remove David Warner as captain as well, because he's under an enormous cloud as well. There's talk of life bans etc. on these guys. He cannot continue to be captain. I think there will be this situation too will come to a head again. Raunak, don't be too surprised if Warner too does not play in the IPL. This is still developing.
What if I defend it and just say the franchise would say, oh my god, we're less than a month before the IPL. So much revolves around our captain, especially in Warner's case.
Yes.
Because he's been around a long time, he's core to the whole planning, etc. To find another candidate, Shikhar Dhawan's already been he's proven that he's not, we've seen that he's not necessarily the ideal choice for captain. So that sets everything apart. So I could have a case as a franchise to say, in my best interest, that I've got to keep him as captain, I don't have a choice.
Yes.
Would you understand my situation as a franchise?
You could, and
because one day I plan on owning a franchise.
And it is a decision ultimately that will be left for the franchise to make. But we don't know the degree of the penalty that is headed the way of Steve Smith and David Warner from Cricket Australia. It is inevitable they will be penalised.
But David Warner will not miss the IPL, because if you said Smith could miss it, then you could imply that even Warner could have that sense of propriety.
I think even
but that's
Warner,
a much bigger hole for Sunrisers than Steve Smith.
If the decision, Raunak, is made in the next couple of days and it is a strong decision by Cricket Australia, then who's to know what their immediate playing future holds? So I think don't be so sure that David Warner is going to lead Sunrisers Hyderabad, and maybe that at this point in time, with the role that these guys have been seen to play in this situation, it's not such a bad thing.
Kane Williamson still with Sunrisers, I think.
Yes.
So have a look at that. He's not doing too badly as captain, different kind of character. What it makes me think of, Gaurav, is now all of a sudden the whole world, Australia have no place to hide. Right? And I'm not making light of it, but you could see how much the world is enjoying the Schadenfreude and all this long word. It means that we take delight in the...
I'm hugely impressed that
you delight in the misery of Australia.
Can you say it again?
Schadenfreude. It's a legal term.
Once more?
Schadenfreude.
Okay.
Right. If it's being subtitled, you won't understand it. No one can spell it. No, the fact is, I'm trying to think, as Australia, or most teams, if this were to happen, as blatant and embarrassing as Cameron Bancroft and Sandpaper and his trousers go, if it would have just been a case of the captain coming in the press conference and saying, it left Bancroft out to dry.
Yeah.
Not admitting his own act, not admitting that it was a contrived, almost pre-planned conspiracy to do it or well thought, and that way covering it from the rest, and maybe the board jumping in to defend and the ICC match referee only looking at Bancroft. The world could have been an easier place for Steve Smith right now. I'm just trying to think whether they got this wrong or like somebody tweeted at one point that there was no choice, that they had to admit because of how blatant it was.
And how blatant it was, how visible the evidence was, how the cover-up
I still think they could have left Bancroft out to dry, tactically.
Or maybe there was an attack of conscience, you know, to realize, oh gosh, you know, we've really stepped over the line here. And as a team, as a leadership group, which is this new phrase that we've been introduced to, that we've really made a mess of this situation and we better own up. And I think that's the one thing. I think that the one decision Steve Smith made, which was a little perplexing, was that he didn't just take all ownership as captain. He said, oh, you know, I am the one who's got to be held responsible for this as captain. I made this mistake and made this decision to allow this to happen. He actually included other senior players and said leadership group.
Which is quite dangerous because, you know, now Warner and his IPL, Mitchell Stark, if he goes Kolkata, will have to play Jui Chawla as their opening fast bowler.
Nathan Lyon who's just picked up 300 test wickets. Now who knows what is going to happen.
Josh Hazelwood also.
And so if all of these guys are sanctioned by Cricket Australia, then they'll have to virtually make a new 11 play in Johannesburg.
Very well. You mentioned a little while back, live bans could be facing them.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that's slightly pushing it.
Yes.
As bad and as heinous as this is, one thing we ought to both clarify, we agree on very little. Actually, we agree on quite a bit. That this is not as bad as match fixing.
Yes.
Or spot fixing.
Not in the not in the same ballpark.
Okay.
Let's see the ICC.
It's not as bad as a racist abuse for which cricketers have been penalized in the past.
And the ICC code of conduct is, a sensible document. It may be, but in some ways it has identified, it has identified how you should be punished for certain acts. Now, match fixing is obviously the worst kind of thing you can do in cricket.
So this is not so bad.
This is not in the same ballpark.
It's also not very well executed because the ball was so not changed that they didn't even get the 5 penalty runs.
Unsuccessfully
in a dark
tampered.
way, if I am to find human this.
Yeah.
It was so badly tampered or non-tampered that...
No, it was unsuccessfully tampered. I mean, that said, the whole idea of underperformance willfully is completely different to what was being attempted
no
here.
Life bans you.
I can't believe it's become part of the conversation that life bans could be on the. I'm sure, and I think Smith will take it on his chin if there is a very severe punishment.
Will he captain again?
I doubt.
Will he captain Australia ever again? You think this is it for Steve Smith as captain of Australia?
I think reading what Bryden Coverdale has written on the site, excellent piece. Basically, it goes into the detail of why this is not just a sporting issue in Australia and why sportsmen in Australia are held to a higher standard and put on a pedestal. And as a result of that, I think Steve Smith will take it on the chin and move on. If he is not allowed to captain Australia again, then he's going to try and finish off his career as a batsman. And I think he'll take that.
Wow, that's a really big call. I mean, imagine to think that Steve Smith would never captain Australia. It would go down as, I mean, I don't know how we'd end his story, even if he goes on to become, if he isn't already the greatest batsman of his time.
Well, I mean, these things will forever remain a black mark on his career, isn't it? Raunak averages over 60, the best batsman in the world, all of those things. But the fact that he led an organized attempt to cheat.
Wow.
Is going to be something that will always stay with his in his
Would
career.
You forgive him? Would you overlook it and say, oh, it happened, and he admitted promptly? Let's go just before we end quickly. Many players have gotten away with ball tampering. I'm only going to say this much because the rest is not legally allowed.
And the world has learnt to forget people who were convicted of much worse. Mohammad Amir is playing cricket right now, captaining a team in the PSL. He's even stood in as captain. Salman Butt is playing again. There is you and I went to South Africa recently. There's a much nicer way that people look at Hansi Cronje now, and there's a much softer view of him. I think at the end of the day, he committed what was a cricketing crime, yes, but it isn't even close to anything that happens in the real world. Of course, I'd forgive him.
Okay.
Of course.
Big man, big heart. Thank you, Gaurav Kalra.
Yes, thank you, Raunak Kapoor.
We sympathize if you're an Australian fan right now. But that's it. Nothing else.
Yes, we do.
We'll see you again or you'll see us again on ESPN Cricinfo, the video cast.
Videocast.
This is ESPN Cricinfo.